On today's episode, we're going to talk about some of the differences you'll find being an author in the States versus Germany. You would hope there aren't any differences, but there are. There are. Hello, Lieblings. I'm Mari, science fiction and fantasy author who's been living in southern Germany since 2014. Today, we're going to talk about being an author. I am an American author who's based in the beautiful land of Deutschland. For the most part, I am like any other indie author. I write, I work with an editor, design my cover, format, publish the book, market the book, pay my taxes. Okay, that's where things start to get a little different. Yeah. I'm sure you're aware that there are things behind the scenes that are different from country to country, so I do want to talk about a few of those things that struck me as surprising in terms of differences between being an author in the US versus Germany. But before we get started, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell if you haven't already. Here on Adventures of Lamati, we talk about writing, living abroad, and everything in between. So I was inspired to do this episode by my darling friend and fellow author YouTuber, Meg Latour over at iWriterly. Come on over to the iWriterly channel for the release party of Meg's debut steampunk space opera, The Cyborg Tinkerer. That is taking place tomorrow, November 17th. Anyway, she has a fantastic episode on pen names, which I will link if you're interested. Of course, she specified that she is talking about what to do for the States. She has listed some great examples as to what reasons you could have in wanting to publish under a pen name and so weiter. And I realized that through my own experiences in Germany, a lot of that stuff is just not easy. Like I expected it to be because I played a lot of stuff based on my experience while I was living in the States. Then I came to Germany and had to change things. So I will go through this topic and only talk about my experiences. I am not a tax advisor, and I recommend that you talk to an actual expert and not some rando on YouTube. Yeah? Okay. So first, I have to clarify that M.L. Tishner is a pen name, though it is also a portion of my legal name, which is why I was able to make this work. You see, there are three ways to kind of set up your tax information as an author in Germany, I think. Again, I'm not an expert, guys. Okay, so the first one is hobbyists. There are those who don't actually plan on making a full-time career as a writer. It's kind of just like, yeah, I've, uploaded something and whatever. And I'm not entirely sure if hobbyists actually have to register because I don't think they would make enough to. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not an expert, guys. I do have, and the other reason why I say this is because I have a friend, the next village over, who has who is an erotica writer and who does publish under a pen name, but I also know she's a hobbyist. So I only wonder if she's registered. Only because once I tried to get registered, I then discovered the difficulty of getting a pen name. So guys, bear with me. First off, I do want to clarify that I do have plans to be a career author. So I do want to make money off of my writing as well as YouTube, whatever. Diversify your income because most authors don't actually make money just off their books. But because of that, it does mean I have to register. And there are two ways to register as Selbstständigkeit in Germany. And Selbstständigkeit means self-employment. So there is freiberuflich, which is freelance, and Gewerbe, which is trade. So technically, authors fall under freelance because you are selling what's in your brain. You're selling knowledge. So if you're like a consultant or whatever, usually you're then freelance, or if you're a freelance technical writer, because everything about your job comes from here. Trade is actually with something physical, like a book. Like I said, bear with me. The thing is though, I obviously don't physically make the books myself. I don't print them out, glue them into, book cover. I have a distributor and a printer for that. Though it starts to get a little tricky if I decide to sell signed copies of my book, because then the customer would technically get the product directly from me. I think the best way to describe it is like, in terms of what trade is. I have a friend who, I'm thinking of the German word, I'll say he burns his own gin. Brennt. Sorry, he distills, that's the word, goodness gracious. He distills his own gin and brandy. And so he is then under Gewerbe. And when you're Gewerbe, you also have what's called an Umsatzsteuer, which is kind of an added tax that you add to to your final product because it kind of goes with the items necessary to make the good. So in terms of like making your own branding, you need the bottles and the labels and the cork and the ingredients and the alcohol. You know what I mean? So it's like everything else. And that's kind of where the difference is with like Gewerbe and, you know, like selling a book. Ironically, though, ebooks used to require an Umsatzsteuer, which makes no sense because you don't even have anything physical. But fortunately, that had changed before the publication of The God Queen. So, whew, haha. Like I said, if I want to sell signed copies of my book or even open a Redbubble shop or a Teespring shop or even make money off of this YouTube channel, I will need to then change my tax status from freiberuflich to Gewerbe. And honestly, it's not that big of a deal. Like, it will just make my taxes a little bit more complicated, but you know, whatever. It is what it is. I already have a tax advisor anyway, so. But while registered as freelance, I wanted to make sure that not only was my legal name on the paperwork, but also my pen name, because that's what you do in the States. You have to have a correlation documented somewhere of your real name and your pen name. But that's not possible with freelance. There's only a space to put your legal name. And when I tried to ask tax advisors about this, I'm like, I want to make this work. They all looked at me literally cross-eyed, or maybe that I grew a second head. Like, why would you want to do that? And I mean, for freelance, it makes sense. You know, if you're a consultant or a technical writer or a translator, you are selling your knowledge, and your certification is usually connected with your legal name. So in that sense, an author doesn't really fit that specification of freelance, but it's still considered to fit under that umbrella. It is rather annoying that I couldn't add my pen name anywhere had I wanted one that wasn't a variation of my legal name. But then I also get asked so often, like from my friends, like, why would I want to publish under a pen name? Datenschutz, meine Liebe, Datenschutz. Okay, honestly, first off, it's actually no one's business why a person chooses a pen name. Again, you really should check out Meg's video if you want to know like possible reasons why people should or would want a pen name. But I mean, I'll be honest with mine. My reasoning for it is actually twofold. I have wanted to publish under the name ML Tishner since I was 8 years old. And just because I got married and took my husband's name doesn't mean that I had to change that dream. And the other reason for it is to put some sort of distance between my public persona and my private persona. I mean, I don't go to great lengths to hide it or anything, but I do believe in having some boundaries online. But again, that's my personal reason, and I'm glad that I could make it work, that I can like work the system in my favor. But I don't know how, you know, like I said, how to make it work otherwise if you want a pen name that has nothing to do with your legal name. So another topic that Meg covered that differs from Germany is actually the reasoning behind it. Like the reasoning why people want to have a pen name. And she had mentioned, which is a really great reason, if you wanted to have a career outside of your normal day job, you could publish under a pen name. And especially if you're an erotica writer, most do. So like I said, I really should actually ask my friend how she does it. Because like I said, if you register for freelance, that's not really possible. Or maybe it is. I don't know. Like nobody was able to give me a straight answer on this. So what's really interesting is because, you know, like I said, I want to be a career author and I had to register. Because I registered and I work a full-time job, I actually had to ask permission from my main job to have this as a side job. I had to actually go to HR. I had to get a special form and fill it out and give it to my boss to formally ask permission to be an author on the side. I actually think this law mainly pertains if you work in one job, like say an office job, and you get like a second job at a coffee shop or something. And it's only because Germany has very strict labor laws, and there are a lot of requirements. You know, like you're still required to have an 11-hour break between one shift and the next one. So like requiring a second job may set off some red flags, and then maybe may require the main job to start asking questions like, why do you need a second job? You know, if you're not making enough money or whatever, because they don't want you to be burnt out, essentially. A really good example of this is with volunteer firefighters here in Germany. We had like a village nearby, there was a fire. And some of our friends, my neighbor included, is a volunteer firefighter. They had gone, I think the fire started at like 1 a.m. and wasn't finished till like 6 a.m. And in the States, if you were a volunteer firefighter, you would be expected to go to work at 8. But in Germany, because they were technically working as firefighters at 6 a.m., that means they are required, starting at that 6 a.m., to have an 11-hour break before they can start working again. Even, you know, so a lot of those guys kind of had the day off, but it was to rest because they were working through the night. So that's, I get the law. And like I said, this is how I'm interpreting it. Again, I am not an expert. This is just like my theory. Based on what I have observed and experienced. And I knew the author bit was not going to be a problem. It's not going to fall under something, you know, something like that. But it was just more of like us wanting to cover our asses, and we didn't want to get in trouble. So that's why I went ahead and did the form. My coworkers have actually been super supportive. And like I said, I didn't want to get into trouble. So I just went ahead and, you know, filled out the form. So technically, author life through the workplace is not necessarily a secret. I would love to find an author who has published under a pen name in Germany and pick their brain, because I was not technically allowed. But I feel like, you know, no matter where you go, you're going to get different answers, and I want to know how they made that work. Because I feel like it's possible. Or maybe it's just something simple as registering under trade instead of freelance. I have no idea. If you have any further information, or I want to know what you even think about it, please let me know in the comments below. And last, and certainly not least, I'm American, and I have to fill out taxes for both Germany and the US. Yeah. Just think, all that information you have to gather in order to fill out taxes and then have to do it twice. Thanks, Uncle Sam. All right, honestly, guys, this is just the tip of the iceberg. But if you do have questions or you'd like to know more differences, let me know in the comments below. And that's it. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're new here, please consider subscribing and give this video a thumbs up. It lets me and YouTube know you like content like this and you want to see more. Please leave me a comment if you have any questions or if there's a certain topic you'd like to see on this channel. My Space Fantasy The God Queen is available in ebook, paperback, hardback, and I have all the links in the description below, as well as the first 6 chapters if you sign up for my newsletter. And don't forget to connect with me on social media, whether it is through Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. And that's it. Until next time, ade!